Okay, good afternoon everybody. Welcome to the East Wing for the final session for this afternoon here in this part of the venue. So it's great for you to join us for more insight into this US property opportunity that Lou Harty presented on the stage this afternoon. Who was there for that session with Lou? Right, anyone who didn't make it and is fresh for this? All right, not a problem. I'm sure Lou will take a moment to explain some of the key fundamentals about this opportunity, because it's been almost a once-in-a-lifetime market correction for residential property for most of us in this room. There hasn't been a correction in property values like we've seen since the GFC began in 2008 or even late 2007 for properties that were just far too heavily geared. So it's a great opportunity now. It's got a strong dollar. You've got great knowledge about American society, and it's easy to understand the culture and the environment you're buying into there if it's an investment opportunity that interests you. So Lou today has brought together some of the experts who are looking after properties in the United States. Please, a warm welcome for Lou Harty.
No one can hear me up there. Okay. What we're going to do now, this is going to be the fastest change ever, right? So we've got about, before I thought we had a fair bit of time, we were going to go right in and showcase the properties, right? So because of the overwhelming response, thanks for coming, it's fantastic. What I'm going to do is cut through all of the other stuff we did this morning. So that was all nice, and you know me, you know what Jamie does. We get that, yeah? Everyone understand that? So how about we get straight to the core stuff? Who would like to just get straight to the core hands-on stuff? So good, because all that fluffy stuff is nice. Hi, gentlemen, welcome. But we want to cut straight to the properties, and we want to cut straight to Ben. So I'm going to open, I'm going to help thread this through, and then I'm going to bring up Ben and Barbie again. Who remembers Ben and Barbie? Of course they do. Come on, guys, you know to lighten up, because in a couple of hours we're going to have Sir Richard Branson here, and he likes some serious fun, happy Aussies. Is that true? All right, so you've got to stay with me. Right? This is a serious subject if you want it to be, but we want to have fun with it, because if we have fun, then when you can pay attention, you can see it for what it really is. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to flick through the 3 or 4 categories that we mentioned. I'm going to bring Ben up, and he will showcase the properties. I will then bring up our Director of US Property, who is a co-founder with Jamie McIntyre, who created the US Property Division, just one extra division of our 13 group of companies. Then I will bring up Rihanna, beautiful Rihanna, and she can talk about, again, how your tenants are looked after for those who look at taking a property. So let's get down to the chunks now. Who here, honestly, in the room, based off what they saw from the main stage today, is serious about getting into one of these properties? Okay, no worries. Now, this is more in particular for you people. Who here in the room would like to get it, but they need to shuffle things around? They need to structure things, or they need to get finance, or they need to speak to their wife, and things like that. Okay, good. And that's how you have to sit with this. Expressions of interest are fine. Right, they're beautiful and they're welcomed, and you guys can have one-on-one consultants. We're in 222 Kingsway, and Annetta later on, we can book you in, you can come in, you can file through the office, and you can sit down and do that. However, this session is designed for those people who are serious and want to take these properties off the table. Because as I said, who remembers how long I said that these properties last for? 3 or 4 days, right? So if people haven't already taken them off, right, Ben will have some more tomorrow and the next day and the next day to pump to our 21st century members. Okay, so that's the way it'll work. Okay, so if you have any questions, I want you to raise your hand, and I want you to stand up on a nice loud voice. I want you to project your voice and scream your question out, because we don't have the luxury of me running down and giving you a mic. Does that sound good? Okay, good. All right, so I want you to play full out. I'm going to be very relaxed in this presentation. Are we on? Oh. Clicker. Small hiccup with a projector. Okay. All right, that's fine. I think I'm good. All right, first one I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up Ben Walls. Who remembers seeing Ben Walls on the stage? So let's give him a round of applause. First up, Ben.
Hello. Thank you, Lou.
Can we have some voiceover for Ben? Oh, we've lost the tech man too. Okay, Ben is from... Yeah, all right.
Can you hear me in the back? No?
So we've lost sound and we've lost text. Everybody do this. Triangle, there's the roof. There's the house. Who remembers the categories? The first category was category 1. What was that? Don't touch. Remember that? Category 1. So they're the places that we don't touch. Where don't we touch, Ben? Detroit. Yep. What else?
Florida.
You got to speak louder so they can hear you.
Sorry, Florida. We're not in Florida yet. California, we're not completely convinced on yet. Las Vegas, Nevada, very cheap housing, but we're not quite convinced that the fundamentals are there for
Can you
recovery.
guys hear Ben at the back? Yep. Okay, good. You just
Am I
need
on?
to listen.
Am I on?
Yeah, you're on.
All right, cool. So for some pretty good reasons, we're not in every market. We're not in a lot of the markets that are quote unquote popular amongst the media. But we got to remember when we're talking about the media, there's always sort of a spin that the media is going to put on things. So just sort of take what you see in news with a grain of salt. I'll say that. Okay. Now we have 2, 3, and 4. The other categories. There's basically 3 categories. What are they? What are the first one that we talked about? Capital growth. And that market would be Phoenix, Arizona. That's the market that we're in for capital growth.
What are some of the other places you're looking at for capital growth? Mainly that one, though. That's the one.
Yeah, this is the one we're focused on now. We have another one sort of where we're looking into,
Yeah.
but we're not quite ready to.
That's pending. That's in the pending tray, remember?
Yeah.
Because remember, we're looking at places that are still sitting there that we'll pick up later. So, okay, we've got the don't touch, we've got the capital growth, which is Phoenix, Arizona. The next one is...
The high yield
Who
markets.
remember where they were? Kansas City, Missouri.
Missouri, Kansas City, actually, and St. Louis, both basically sister cities of each other. Very close demographically, identical as far as the makeup of the city, the size of the city, the economy that supports the city. So we'll just call this our high yield markets. And that's Kansas City and St. Louis and Missouri. The next one is our hybrid market. Does anyone remember the city that we focus on for the mix of both capital growth and yields? Atlanta, Georgia. That's
So you
right.
guys are good. You know, you've already picked up those 4 main ones. So that's even just the basics, right? So you know that the ones we don't touch, you know that the capital growth is Phoenix, Arizona. You know the cash flow, where you're getting a much higher rental return, is Kansas, St. Louis, and then you've got the hybrid, Atlanta, Georgia, right? So that's great.
So basically, we've talked about a little bit about the operation that we do, how we go in, we select the properties, you know, why we're selecting in certain areas as far as we want high rental yield, but we also want some, we want a good mix of owner occupants in those areas as well. So we're looking for neighborhoods that have some owner occupants that have been predominantly dominated by owner occupants in the past, because what we're looking for, we always want to keep our exit strategies open. One of the ways that you can maintain open exit strategies is to make sure that you're buying in areas that are high demand for not only rentals but also owners. So eventually, if you want to sell, you'll be able to sell into an owner market instead of just to an investor market. Does that make sense, you guys? Okay. So the areas that we're in, real quick about when we go in, we purchase the homes. What we do, that you can do everything we do. You can probably do here in Australia. Just by doing it online. You can find a bank repo, you can find someone to sell you a house, you can Google some contractors and hopefully you get a fair bid. You can try to manage the project, you can get leasing, you can try to do all these things. Not recommended. Not recommended. I would suggest that you go with a sort of a turnkey service provider like us. We go through, we do all of that for you. So at the end of the day, you're immediately cash flow positive as soon as you take possession. One of the advantages of doing that, obviously, is your time. You're not having to worry about managing a project from overseas. The other thing about that is that your cash starts right away. And at the end of the day, we do these in bulk. We do these in volume. We've got contractors that we've beat down on prices for us. We've got a lot of our vendors that give us special rates because of our volume. So at the end of the day, Yes, we do provide a service, and there's a premium in there for that service, but you're probably paying, through us, you're probably paying the same or less of what you'd pay if you actually went to do it yourself, just because we've done all the mistakes. We've already made the mistakes. So you're virtually, we've done it all for you. You don't have to go in and make the mistakes that you might make getting started. So there's that. 1, 2, 3.
So we're just trying to because there's a major technical issue, which is really unfortunate because we had the properties ready to showcase. So we have to sort of just work this out. But the advantage is, one, there's no stamp duty, correct? Who's happy with no stamp duty? Right? 0 stamp duty. What else, Ben?
0 stamp.
You don't have to write it. We just need to sort of speed this up.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. All right. Number 2, advantage.
Well, well, the fact that these properties are 40, 50, 60% discounted, right? So houses that were 100,000, 120,000 are now selling for about $60,000. So what areas would they be based off the high rental return? Who remembers? High rental yield.
Missouri.
Kansas, yeah? Hands up for Kansas. Where else? St. Louis. Okay, so just if you can go through, what we might do is we might bring up Rihanna and talk about, imagine, I want to walk people through these because it's very hard without the properties, but imagine that you've just purchased one of these properties, like the one I purchased in St. Louis, okay? All I wanted to know were the numbers. I love the fact that there's no stamp duty, that you've got a 40, 50% discount on these houses, and the fact that you've got these guys actually looking after them, because Ben's job is to actually purchase the property. So how many houses do you normally buy, like your company, for us?
We have kind of a rolling inventory of anywhere from 60 to 80 properties at any given time.
Right, so what happens is when we get them, you know, our company, 21st Century, with Ben and Rihanna and, you know, a big team of people, the people at the back as well as the people in the office in Melbourne and up in Noosa, right, their role is to do all of this stuff for you. And as Ben said, if you want to do it yourself, you can, right? But you've heard of property sourcing fees here in Australia, yeah? So what's that about? About $5,000, $6,000. Now you can pay those fees and people will actually do that stuff for you. Okay, so with 21st Century, we're relying on Ben's company to actually source these houses for us. He delivers them to us. We select them and give them to our clients for our clients to choose what they want, right? And they whip through them really quick, and then we give them to Rihanna to actually find the tenants and look after it, the building for us. So while we're on that subject, let's bring her up again. Beautiful Rihanna King. Please give her a round of applause. So have we got sound for Rihanna? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to stand up and ask a question. Do you want to stand up there? Yeah? Okay, good question. Hey!
Great.
All right, so Rihanna, so if you guys have got questions, I need you to let us know, put your hand up, and then we'll go through them. So Rihanna, can you just explain to the guys what you do and how you look after the properties? Yeah?
We're much like the property managers here. We're on the ground. We handle keeping the property tenanted. We also handle any maintenance that needs to be done. One of the great things is that we do 90-day inspections. So we go through each property every 90 days. We take photos and we can send them to you. And that's included in our service. So at any point in time, you can know exactly, you know, what the property looks like, how it's being maintained, which definitely helps out. Where's Lou?
Okay, so let's have a look. This is your area. So do you want to come up on the stage? It may be easier
Is that right here?
for you to come up on the stage. Now that we've got, there's no steps. Is there steps? Okay, we'll stay down here. Okay, so I know you guys can't see at the back, but here we've got a Phoenix property, right? The previous price, Ben, $220. And do you know this property, one of you guys?
Yeah, this is a property out in Buckeye. Buckeye is sort of one of our preferred west side Phoenix suburbs. It was one that sort of developed quite a bit during the big upswing. Predominantly owner occupants were buying all these properties out here as they were being built. A lot of times people wouldn't be able to come in and pick their own paint, their own carpet, all the trimmings and finishes. So they were buying these homes brand new about 10 years, through the last 10, 15 years of the growth phase. We like the area of Buckeye. We like these types of properties because, again, they're back where owner-occupants sort of dominated these areas in these suburbs. I know it's a little bit different. Sort of everybody, I guess, wants to live as close to the downtown area in Australian cities as you can. The value of the property increases as the closer you get to the CVB. Is that how you say it?
CBD.
CBD, the CBD. It's
The
not
city?
that way. It's not that way in U.S. cities at all. In fact, it's sort of the opposite. People are happy to commute 30, 40 minutes to work. They're happy to live outside in sort of an outlying community, outside of the city center. So when you see some of these properties and you're mapping them, some people say, "Wow, this thing is 30 minutes outside the city. Isn't this it's just terrible values?" But it's actually sort of the other way around. People prefer to live in the suburbs. They prefer to live in the outer lying communities. Each community has all of your needs and wants. It has your Walmarts, your banks, your grocery stores, your convenience stores. I mean, so each little suburb outside the city is its own sort of community. So when you see these on the maps, don't be confused to say, "Wow, this is way out here. No wonder it's so cheap." Maybe no wonder it's so cheap. It's outside the city. Again, it's just different over there. So.
And another thing too, you got to think about it. The people that have lost their homes, they want to stay in the same neighborhood. They want to keep their kids in the same school. They don't want to have to move across town. So, an outlying area is exactly where they're going to stay.
So 8%. So let's have a look at the next one. But they're all pretty much around the same. So the thing is,
Yeah.
you guys are getting this for 90,000, right? So this is virtually 50, 60% off. Yes, sir. If you can stand up in a nice loud voice, ask a question. That's frozen.
Oh, that's fine.
No, run.
No, go ahead. Oh, you got a map. Yeah, okay.
Cheers, thanks for that.
Excuse me.
Up there you've got gross yield of 11.4 and you've got net yield of 8.4 and you've got annual expenses of 22,779. I really want to try and get a handle on what are the expenses in total, both particularly in the US. Like Rihanna, you talked about maintenance before. Is any of that reflected in the variation between gross and net, or the annual expense below? I just want to get a real good understanding of any hidden expenses or costs.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just show you what the expenses are here. You've got taxes is going to be one of your expenses. Now we don't line item all the expenses here, but you've got, these are your total annual expenses. It's going to be your taxes, your management. We put a maintenance sort of allowance in there, and then your insurance. Those are going to be your 4 expenses that are calculated in every property to get the net return from the gross. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
I can't. Tech man, this is frozen.
I'm sorry?
Rates.
Rates would
Council
be,
rates.
I think, considered taxes. Yeah, taxes are factored into that, the annual taxes here.
So the question was what the previous price was. The previous price at the top is 220,000.
Previous price, these are prices that were, these houses were purchased at back at the peak of the market. So just to give you a relation to where the market is now versus where it used to be, we'll show you that previous price there.
Sorry, the prices for the previous peak market, that was how many years ago?
The peak of the market was 07, 08, right in there. I'm sorry, 07, the end of 07, the start of 08. That's when the peak was. Everything started to sort of come down from there. Yes?
So the question
Yeah.
was,
Yeah,
question
of
was how long is the vacancy rate for the tenancy? And then if you can expand on that, Rihanna.
Yeah, it's generally pretty easy to find tenants. We look at it a couple weeks. And we don't have problems renting properties at all. I mean, there's tenants everywhere looking for properties. And the great thing about the Phoenix market, too, is people are still moving there. So you don't only have the people who are already there, you have people moving there still. So there's a wide range of tenants.
So, and also knowing that, if you select one of the properties, for example, you don't have to actually get it until that we've got a tenant. And I remember all of these are renovated. If they need renovation, they're all renovated, but they're all tenanted too. And if they're not tenanted, Stephen, I'm coming towards you, baby. And if they're not tenanted, then you don't have to pay anything until it is. Okay? No worries? Just stand over there, mate.
I want to say a quick thing on. I want to say a quick thing on the leasing as well. Typically, across all markets, it's about 30 days or less. But what I will say too is that tenants, even though there's a lot of tenants out there and there's a lot to choose from, tenants are still picky and choosy on the properties that they're going to rent. A lot of these people, they don't like to hustle and bustle. They don't like to move around. They like to find a place. They like to stay, much like you, I'm sure. But being the fact that there is sort of a lot of supply, they still are picky. So all of our stuff is freshly rehabbed. It's always good top notch. We're not just slapping a coat of paint on something and calling it ready to go. So being the fact that our properties are a cut above the rest, I think that helps with our leasing. I think it helps.
Absolutely.
It decreases the vacancy rates. It's just more attractive properties are going to attract better tenants and faster tenants. So.
Okay, so let's quickly, we've got 16 minutes left to get through this and Warren and a couple of other things because we need to get you out of this room back into the big room, right? So if we can just quickly go through the other two places, Atlanta, we'll just flick through at some of these properties that are available, particularly the price and the net yield.
This Vanessa and Austell, again, Austell is a suburb right outside of Atlanta. 3-bedroom, 1 bath. This is roughly 900 square feet. It's a smaller property. But you see the price here, $42,943,000. The net yield is just under 17%. This is actually one of the higher ones in Atlanta that we have. We typically don't see net yields this high in Atlanta, so this is one of the higher ones currently. Linwood Drive, Ellenwood. Again, Ellenwood is a suburb just outside of Atlanta. You see the price here of $56,000 and the net yield of 14.11. And that's more average in line with what we're producing from the Atlanta market. That net yield is about right of what we're seeing on a more consistent basis. The Vanessa Drive property is just a higher yield. This one here, a price of $53,000, net yield of 14.3. Again, this is right in line with what we're seeing with the Atlanta inventory. This is 49th Terrace in Kansas City, Missouri. Some of the people were asking sort of what's the lowest point, the lowest entry point that we offer. And this is going to be one on the lower entry price of $35,000. Really 30 to 35, that's sort of the lower end. This is a 2-bedroom property. The rent's for just under $600 a month, and the net yields is 14.42. 75th Street in Kansas City, Missouri. This is an interesting property. This is 3104 East 75th. We did the houses on either side of this property as well over the course of the last 12 months. We did 3406 and we did 3402. 3402 we did about a year ago, and 3406 we did about 6 months ago. One of the things we like to do if we buy a house, we have a good deal and it's a good neighborhood, and there's down in that block there's another vacancy or board up. One of the things we'll try to do is we'll go find out who the owner is, if it's on the city rolls or whatever it is, and we'll research that to try to purchase that house as well. So we like to kind of take neighborhoods and blocks at a time, and any ones that are vacant, we'll just go ahead and purchase those and rehab them and get an occupant in there.
So remember that $37,000, do you guys get that? $37,000 for a house that people are actually living in, and people are going to continue to rent that, right? So to me, this is an absolute no-brainer. And then you saw the house that I bought, and we'll go through the house that I bought. I'm brand new to buying US property. I've never bought a US house in my life, right? But I trust our strategies, of course, right? Because why wouldn't they work for me? Everything else worked for me. And what is the main reason everything else worked for me? It's because the way I positioned myself and the way I thought about it. If I sat there and worried about, oh, what happens if this happens, or if they don't pay, the same issues are what we have here in Australia. Yes, darling, up there with a hand up high. Can you use your nice loud voice? Or do you want to speak into my mic? Here you go.
The rents seem like a very low rental cost compared to Australia. Do you think there's going to be rental appreciation? Have you seen the rents drop over the last couple of years? And in capital growth markets, do you think there'll be a rental increase in price?
Ben?
Yeah, the rents do not fluctuate near as much as the underlying value of the property. That's kind of one of the nice things about when you make your investment. Some people say, well, geez, what if it goes up 20%, or what if it drops 20%, or what if the underlying value of my asset goes up or down? Your rents are not tied to the value of the property. Your rents are tied to the rental market. So, and again, the rental market does not fluctuate near as much as what values may fluctuate from. So, the same property that we're renting for $800 a month now, a few years ago we would rent that thing for maybe $750. So so it's just you don't see the big swings in rental. The rental market is pretty stable as far as that goes. So.
To me, like visually, that's a lovely looking house, right? But as I said, remember, it's not going to be the house that you live in. It's going to be the house that someone else will live in. You know what I mean? All you need to know is the rent going to come in. I see you there, darling. I do see you. I've got you locked and loaded. Don't you worry about it. I will shortly. Let me just finish this point because it applies to the room, right? So you have to, as I said, you have to not kid yourself about this stuff. You've got to see it for what it is. And if there's no tenants there, then Rihanna's job and Ben's job is to lock that down. Okay? So, yes, sir. Stand up in your nice big voice. Oh, now the mic works.
I just wanted to find out how much cash you'd need to get into one of these deals. Is it hard getting finance in Australia for an asset over in the US, or can we get finance in the US for one of these, or how does it work?
It's a lot easier to get finance in Australia, whether you're getting a personal line from a bank, or whether you're getting a line of equity out of your property, or if you're using a super fund to convert that to where you can use it as usable cash. I would say it's easier in Australia. Your rates are going to be less in Australia. Then once you get that loan, you're basically come into the market, the U.S. market, with the power of a cash buyer, which, I mean, Rihanna, cash buyers rule the market.
They do.
The
They
bottom
do.
line. I mean, finance buyers always take a backseat to a cash buyer. It's just the way it is. So what I would say is, if you want to use some finance, I would first look at Australian finance options. And then we do have some emerging U.S. finance for non-U.S. residents. But, they're not the best loans. I mean, to be honest with you, they're 50% down. You're looking at anywhere from 7 to 12% interest. And you're also looking at a balloon payment, anywhere from 3 to 5 years of a balloon. And what a balloon is, if you don't know, it's you have a loan that's amortized over a certain period, say 20 years or 30 years. So you have a note that reflects, like say a small note that reflects a 30-year rate. But at the end of 5 years, if you have a 5-year balloon, you're going to owe the principal balance of that note. So the remaining balance at the end of 5 years, you owe that. So what you have to do is either come up with the cash to pay that off at that time, or you have to refinance out of it. Now, what a lot of people are doing, if you want some leverage and you want some U.S.-based leverage, you come into these loans and you consider them a bridge loan, okay? A bridge from one finance to another, okay? Right now, you come in and you get this loan. It's a little bit high on the rates. You're paying some points up front. You've got this looming balloon sort of that you're looking at over the next 3 to 5 years. So what you do is you come in and you set up your LLC. You get a banking relationship. After 24 months, typically banks are going to now look at you as a credit-worthy lending risk, okay? So over the 24 months that you're establishing this credit rating with them, you're building a relationship with the bank, and then you'll be able to refinance out of that loan. So when I say a bridge, you're bridging from one finance option to another. And so you're able to come into a loan that just like a standard U.S. resident would pay, good interest rates and all that. So
what sort of interest rate would that be?
Right now, investor loans are about 5-6%.
So with the LVR that we've got with certain deals, right, we have to sort of tame this in a bit. is around 50%. So, for example, let's use one of the Phoenix properties as an example on a $100,000 property, right? So you would still need to come up with at least 50%, right, to utilise some of the private financing deals that we've got going on with the US. We've also got a 21st Century Finance division, right, that you can speak to. That's just one of our services that you can apply for loans, you can go through credit, you can purchase through your self-managed super fund and stuff like that. So what I might do is I might just finish it there with the properties, although we want to continue to go through the properties because I now need to bring Warren Black on, but if you guys can just remain with us, right, and then we'll just come back to you.
Sure.
Okay, so, yes, sir. Stand up in a nice, big, loud voice and face the crowd.
We'll repeat the question for you. What is it?
Yeah. I'll speak to you offline about that. But no, they don't. Military super, they're locked and loaded by the government. You can't touch it. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is, I'll come back to you, miss. So just hold that question. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring on Warren Black, who is our accountant. He's a professional lawyer. He's a certified lawyer, certified accountant. He worked with the ATO for 10 years, right? So I think he knows his stuff. And he structures all of your business if you wish to utilise that. So you can talk to him offline. You can go to the 21st Century Accounting website, book in for a free consultation at any point. But he's going to go through now. I'll just go back through this. He's going to go through this stuff. And that's when some of you may want to ask some questions. And then I'll go through the property that I did and the process that I took. And then we'll leave everyone up here and we can ask more questions. And then we'll close. Those people who want to get straight into the properties, Sonny and the team down the back are there to get you started if you want these properties. So, ladies and gentlemen, give a round of applause to Mr. Warren Black.
How are you all? Enjoying it so far? One of the things when you're going to be buying US property and getting into some of these really sexy deals they're talking about is making sure you've got a sexy tax structure. Because otherwise, if you get... One of the biggest things in US is getting sued. Who's heard of the kind of stuff that goes on over there? Yeah, there's plenty of stories I could tell you if I had time. So the biggest thing is to make sure that you're structured properly. So one of the things when you're buying your properties is making sure you've got what's called an LLC, which is short for a limited liability company. Now, what that means is that rather than owning the property in your own name in the US, you're buying it in a company, which basically puts a bit of a wall of protection between you and the property. So let's just say that someone comes onto the property, you've got no idea it's in Phoenix, someone visits the tenant, they slip on the property, they sue them, well, and they sue the owner of the property, which is you. Of course, because it's behind the LLC, it remains protected. Now, that also raises the issue of, so when you set it up, the LLC, you're going to need to get a bank account and what's called an employee identification number, which we can all do here through the accounting and through US property. Probably the biggest thing which I wanted to touch on is superannuation and what kind of structure you would do in Australia. Because I get asked all the time things like, do I pay tax in the US and Australia? The answer, unfortunately, is yes, you do. No government likes to give up their rights to tax you and take some money out of your pocket if they can help it. But the good news is, if they tax you in US, they'll tax you in Australia as well, but they'll deduct the tax in the US that you've already paid, okay? The big thing is superannuation. Now, who here has got not a lot of money to necessarily go and buy a property, but they have got some money in super which they could buy a property? Put your hand up. Quite a few. Okay, what this means is that rather than have your super sitting with BHP or with AMP or First Mutual, someone like that, you can set up what's called a self-managed super fund which can hold your property for you, or which you can use to fund. So let's just say you've got about 60, 70 grand in super or even 100 grand or whatever. You can set up a self-managed fund, transfer the money out of or what's called rollover from your current super. You can put it into a self-managed fund, set up an LLC and you buy it over there using super. Now the great thing with super to buy property is that you only pay 15% tax on the net rental. So let's just say you make these great rental returns that Ben and Rihanna are talking about. You only pay 15% tax in Australia on that in a super fund. And better still, if you're over 60, you pay 0% tax. So to give you a bit of food for thought, although I'm not a licensed investment advisor, I can give you a bit of food for thought here. Let's just say that you got 60, 70 grand in super. You might spend 30, 40, 50 grand and buy a property over there. Or let's say you got 200 or 300 grand. You can buy a property, hold it for 10, 20 years, assuming it goes up in value, which I'm pretty sure in the next 10, 20 years there's a good chance it will. You'll pay 0% tax after 60 on your capital gain. So it's a great retirement strategy. Buy up your property, hold it in there long term, great yields in terms of cash flow, like we're seeing like 10, 11, 12, 14%, and at the same time, getting capital gains. So that means that once you sell it, you pay no tax on the capital gain. You can pull out pensions from your retirement fund. So, for example, let's say that you've got $1 million in super, or like say $500,000. You buy shares, you buy US property, all that, hold it for 20 odd years. Just like that, it's worth $2 million. Sell it off, you got a fund for your pension. Just like that, can pull it all out tax free. Who thinks that's pretty sexy? Absolutely. So, very simply, if you're wanting to look at super, we've got it. We can take your names. We've got forms at the back of the room which you can fill out and tick off. We've got various options ranging from setting up a super fund with limited advice, just a basic start, low cost, right up to a full package where we can do it a whole lot for you. We can give you advice, we can coach you, help you get your money out of your current superannuation funds and structure it. Just a couple of very quick points I'll add on that one too. Very, very important if you do it, you structure yourself correctly. If you're buying a property through a LLC, which we would be recommending, and then setting up a super fund, you've got to have what's called a bare trust agreement. I suggest you write that down if you're thinking of doing super. You must have your super fund set up, a bare trust agreement to go with your LLC. So LLC, bare trust, self-managed super fund. Not just that, your LLC must have the right members or owners of it, because otherwise your auditor of your self-managed fund will get you into some trouble. So you've got to make sure it's all set up very precise and very correctly. And just the last thing I'll mention is if you're going to be buying US property outside super, so let's just say you've got some spare cash in your line of credit or you've got some cash in your bank and you're going to do it, make sure your LLC is properly protected. So as well as having an LLC, you might also be looking at having a family trust own your membership interest in the LLC. So very, very simply, if you're going to be buying US property, you want to make sure, if you're buying through super, set up a self-managed fund and see us. If you've already got a self-managed fund, we can provide advice and help you. If you don't, make sure you see us anyway, get one of our free review forms, and we can make sure you're properly structured in a company of trust. So, any questions, Lou? Or?
I have one.
Yep.
So, for example, let me just walk through this. I saw something I liked, right? It had good rental return of 21%. The property cost $49,000, right? The membership, the basic membership is going to cost you $5,000. The platinum membership will cost you $10,000, right? That's part of the business of us educating you, us providing you with the service of Warren, us providing you with the service of Ben and the beautiful Rihanna, and looking after you, and they look after your properties, right? That is the service of the membership. Now, when I did it, Warren, luckily because I'm a smart woman, Warren a couple of years ago, when I used to buy everything under Lou Harty, my personal name, then I started buying more things under my personal name, Warren would then say to me,
I'd say, Lou, you're not properly structured here. If someone sues you, you are gone.
and I went, why would someone sue me? And he went, why would
there's
they?
plenty of reasons why people can sue you. I got sued about 3 years ago for giving supposedly bad advice on family law, and I clearly spoke in my letter that I wasn't a family lawyer, and I was completely bewildered, and I might add, it was when I was an employee many years ago, not for when I was basically running my own company, which I do now. So, of course, I asked the lady in mediation, why are you suing me? And she said exact words, and I'll swear this is true, she said, I've got a very sick child, the family lawyer, unfortunately, I'm out of time to sue him, you're the last one left. 100% true.
And see, that's how easy it can happen, right? And if you just go back in history and you go on Google and you find out of all these ridiculous lawsuits that happen, particularly here in Australia and in the US, that stuff can happen. So when we send troops into battle, we never send them unprotected, do we? It'd be ridiculous. It's exactly the same thing. So yeah, sure, you may start buying stuff in your own personal name, as I did, until I got financial advice from a qualified certified practitioner, which is Warren, right, and his team. Then he suggested to me, Lou, you should look at doing company structure. So my husband, Royce, is the director of our company, right? We've got a series of companies. Do we have 1 million staff? Of course not. The only person who works hard in this business is Lou Harty. My husband just kicks back and reaps the rewards. It's true.
I want that kind of marriage.
But that's why I'm still married.
I know. Oh, you got to help me find
That's a
someone.
different story. He's single, by the way, ladies. Any single ladies? Why is no one putting their hand up today, Warren?
Come on. Anyone
that
wanting to offer me
hurt.
that service? Okay, auctioning it off.
So what the point is here is then initially you be going, okay, I want to do this. You may want to just get started with your personal name as far as the membership goes. You then still have, plenty of time to actually get structured, right? Warren set my husband up as the director of the company, Lucrative Proprietary Limited, as trustee for Lucrative Trading, which is our discretionary trust. He structured it properly. And then obviously when we did this, he then set up the LLC, the Limited Liability Company, so I tiered it together, Lucrative Real Estate. So the thing is, the contract from Ben was 3 pages, right? I just saw the stats, saw the numbers, saw the returns, and just made a decision, right? People who make a lot of money make quick decisions. Have you heard that how many times today? That's what it comes down to, right?